So, hi everyone. This is Julia recording this on October 13th, I believe, 2022. And I'm here with Lana. Lana and I met a couple of weeks ago. She was being accommodated by my housemate, and then she got stranded here. So, we got a chance to kind of meet each other and bond. And yeah, she's really cool, really awake, and really done a lot of emotional healing work, and she's an expert in Kundalini yoga. And I don't know much else. So, what else, Lana?
Well, that was a silver lining in all the craziness, was being stranded there despite the circumstances. For sure. Everything divinely works out. I spent over 10 plus years in the Air Force, and then I went into government contracting, working in IT and Intel. So when people see me as a yogi, they think I'm all, woo-woo spiritual without any type of life experience, which is, I kind of get it. People get lazy and they put people in a box and they just assume, and you know what assuming does, it makes an ass out of you and me. Uh, and so it's been an interesting journey of stepping from one life into another, and then recognizing that it doesn't matter what walk of life you're walking in, whether there's a lot of people, as I call it, hiding out in the spiritual community. There's a lot of people in all walks of life that are just seeking to escape their hurt, traumas, and pain. And I, for myself, when I lost my job in 2008, working for the government over in Italy, I went kicking and screaming. And even back then, I knew it was a divine intervention, because at that moment, I know I was accepting a toxic work environment and trying to just push through. And I had a physical disability, but I didn't think to go on disability because my mindset was always, you got to work. And nobody offered or suggested it to me. I didn't have a huge support network. But yet, looking back, I also know that that divine intervention was basically my higher self saying, you don't deserve this. You're not choosing you, so we're going to do it for you. And since then, I have devoted my life and my path to acknowledging, recognizing, and healing patterns of my own behavior, and seeing and connecting the dots in where I had basically essentially taken on my parents' stories. My first big personal development course was with Anthony Robbins, doing Date with Destiny, and recognizing my promoting and demoting habits and beliefs. And that was just the beginning. So from that point in 2008 and to this point, where 2022 has been a hell of a ride. And especially over the past few years, a lot of stuff came to surface of, wow, I know what my purpose was when I went into spiritual communities. And I was already coming from a fitness background. I used to teach aerobics, used to teach step, kickboxing. I taught yoga and Pilates and all that wonderful stuff. And ran my marathons, and then I went into the yoga environment where it was all love and light. I became a Reiki master even before all that. And I would encounter people who were very much what I would consider very much awake. And then over the past few years, I had my own shake up, my own wake up of, wow, people you thought were awake are not, and people you didn't know were awake really were. And so it's been humbling, because over my past year, especially, I'm going through what I call the cleanse of my social circle. And I feel like in life, we go through these waves, these phases, the cycles of life, where people have served you up to a certain point. And it's really sad because, we want to take everyone along for the ride, hey, don't you want to be happy? Don't you want to evolve and grow? But sometimes they are very resentful toward those who keep on evolving and growing beyond them, when they want someone to enable them and hold them in that old space, because that's comfortable for them. But we don't grow in our comfort zone. And for myself, I like to go into the discomfort because I know that's where I'm growing. I am pushing the limits, pushing the boundaries. I don't deliberately seek confrontation or conflict with others. I seek revelation of myself through others. I seek to be the better person. I don't want to be bitter. I was saying this the other day. My mother used to say, I never want to be like those bitter old ladies. And then one day she said, I think I understand why they're bitter. And the reality is we don't want to be bitter. We want to be better. We want a better life for ourselves and others. And often when we all come into our own personal awareness of, I need to heal some things, to do the shadow work, to really confront the past that I've been suppressing and basically depressing myself of, it requires a humbleness, a willingness to see the pain, and to also acknowledge that the pain is not who you are, but yet that pain serves purpose. And I know for my own pain, it's always shown me that, pain and anger and different emotions actually show you care. When you look at the scales of consciousness, David R. Hawkins, the power versus force, anger shows you care. If you didn't get angry, it would mean you don't care. So most people who get angry don't realize what it is they care. They care so much, they're in that space. And so it has been one hell of a journey. And this particular trip that I met Julia on was one of reclaiming my wild woman, my fierce, all those aspects of myself that maybe I left behind because I was on this spiritual healing path, or if you want to call it that, because you know what, it's life. It's the human existence. And where the nature of a human is to seek our true nature. To what we are always seeking is truly ourselves. So we can look outside of ourselves all we want, but it's always within us. And when it comes down to it, we always come back to ourselves. All these other experiences, the circumstances, the people that we encounter, they're really just mirroring back where we're at. And every time I'm humbled by, wow, what's going on that this person is reflecting this situation back to me? It's like, okay, I can be compassionate for that other person. I can see their pain because that's my pain too. We like to say in Kundalini yoga, recognize the other as you. And if you can't see God in all, you can't see God at all, which is humbling in itself, because it's saying, recognize the other as you. And you also have to recognize the God in the other person is also the God in you. Most people, they separate that because of religion. And, it's taboo to say I'm God, because the ego wants to either inflate or deflate, keep you small or be so grandiose, it's toxic. And that's the nature of duality and this polarizing, the world is polarity, opposites. And that's just showing you the imbalances when you're in contrast. So it has been humbling. I've especially encountered some things where people are just kind of mirroring back to me. And I'm also having to step into, and I'm good with who I am. I'm very, very confident. And I got some feedback since I've been back. Wow, Lana, you're really solid. You're confident. You're softer. I'm getting all this feedback. And I'm like, it's because I've reclaimed those aspects of myself, and I know myself, and I feel good in myself. And every once in a while, so this is a funny story. So we have spiritual names in Kundalini yoga, and my spiritual name is Sundari Kiran Kaur. And that translates to the lioness princess that radiates the beauty of God so bright in your face, like a powerful beam. You cannot deny it. And what I've learned over the years of really meditating on that name, and also part of one of my wounds with the toxic masculine, as it's been exposed to me, is that I essentially, and I don't do this intentionally, it's just of my nature, of my being, of my essence, of me being vulnerable and revealing my truth, because I'm confident in that. I'm courageous in that. I'm also a Leo, so I come from the heart. My place is to always come from the heart with loving intention. I don't seek to make people feel anything. That's not my responsibility. Yet I am humbled because I also have compassion when I trigger people, and the trigger turns into them wanting to punish me for them feeling something they didn't want to confront in themselves. So when I say that, over the course of my military career, I had a lot of issues with authority figures, because what essentially was an exuberant young woman who was, excited to learn, wanting to be a part of a team. I was always looking for ways to contribute, to grow, to learn. Hey, give me something to do. And in some cases, for the lazy people around me, they didn't like that because it made them look bad. But I was still kept my naivete over the course of my life, to where I was like, I was aware of it. It was hurtful. It sucked, because there were so many times when I literally had people in places of authority that would try to put me under their thumb and control me because they felt like they needed to. When I've always been the natural born leader, the one who steps up to say, hey, we need to get things done. I'm right here. Let's do it. With that said, in the spiritual communities, now we hear this buzzword about narcissism quite often, especially right now, because it's a huge theme, and it's a trauma. It's a collective trauma, the codependency on a system that needs you to be dependent upon it. In the spiritual communities, when you encounter somebody who doesn't want to look at their wounds, and that what the narcissist does is they take what you have courageously, vulnerably entrusted in them as your, revealing and sharing of your heart. This has happened to me recently, especially. What they tend to do is try to punish you, not because of you and what you're revealing, but the fact that they're uncomfortable with you revealing what you're feeling. And so when people are uncomfortable with their own self, their inability to want to feel, and I always say, you've got to feel it to heal it. If you're trying to avoid feeling, then you're also avoiding healing. And so when someone brings up a trigger, you need to bless that person. You need to say thank you, because inside of you, your inner child is calling that forward. Because when you're not confronting the wound within you, the inner child will act out, and it will call in a third party. It will say, you're not paying attention to me. It throws a temper tantrum. Since you're not paying attention to me, I'm going to draw in this other person so that you can say you're going to blame them, because that's essentially what the ego always wants to say. It's not my fault. You did this to me, which is a victim story. Playing the victim does not serve. Asking, what is this here to teach me? What is this bringing up? Where am I feeling it in my body? There's a gift in that experience, that we're always serving one another. So when this other person raises a trigger in you, that's your work to do. It's always your work to do. That other person is just serving as a catalyst. It's up to you to alchemize what has come to surface, turn that shit into gold. That wound, there's purpose in your pain. That wound has a purpose to healing you. And the only way we can be whole is to work on that stuff that we try to hide below the surface, which is the shadow work. You feel guilty or bad for having bad thoughts. That's shadow work too. That's owning your shadow, owning your dark. If you don't own that dark, it's going to own you. And when people think their shit doesn't show, it shows even more, because when you're denying something, it is out there for the world to see. But the average person thinks, oh, well, they'll never know. Or they're kind of like hiding like, oh, they'll never see me for what I'm showing, and or what happened back in the day. Well, energetically, you're always emitting that frequency. And until you heal it, you're going to keep attracting it. So these experiences we have in life, we continue to re-experience, just with different players and characters and different scenarios and environments. But the truth is it's up to us to heal that. Yes, it wasn't right when it happened when we were children. And we had no control over the circumstances as children. But there's a reason why we have these experiences. And a lot of times that is usually what is in the purpose that the person has in this life. That we had a certain experience so that we could relate to one another, that we could have compassion, and to be in unity, because humans in unity is what equals humanity. Otherwise, humans without unity is nothing. And nature nurtures, and it teaches us our true nature. So that, in a nutshell, is where I'm at in this moment in time. And it's been beautiful. And I'm very grateful and blessed to have met Julia on that crazy ride of Portugal and the Algarves. Yeah.
Wow, that was very well said. You just gave like 20 self-help books worth of information there in, a little over 20 minutes. So yeah, man, some really good stuff there for people to grab a hold of. And I'm always saying on this channel to everybody needs to do their emotional healing work, which is another word for shadow work. And there's a great modality, and you can find a emotional healing playlist on this channel if you don't know yet, because there are lots of methods. As long as you find one that works, that's fine. But there is one, Language Lessons of the Heart, that does work. And we even have a little group going where we have Zoom meetings every Sunday with them. And yeah, but emotional healing is key. And you're right, we are here to find ourselves again and our magic. So many people think that they're just victims of circumstance when we're the co-creators of this reality.
Yeah. And every choice you make is choosing that, whether it's a choice that's conscious or unconscious. And choices are superpower. And the moment you recognize that every time you make a choice, that's you, exerting your power, whether it's to choose your feeling or to choose to do or not do something. And a lot of people don't realize, there's something I created for myself. There's so many modalities out there, really. But there's one thing that I started doing with myself for a while now, for a few years, where I look in the mirror. And if I'm having a meltdown, a breakdown, whatever you want to call it, there's always going to be a breakthrough as a result. Whenever I'm feeling an icky, sticky an emotion, I'm like, wow, I've done so many different things, but what I essentially find works the best for me is to be accountable to myself, is to see myself, look in the mirror. And I always joke and say that I do my best work on the toilet because I've got a big mirror in front of my toilet, So like I will stare at myself and go, yeah, you're choosing to feel this. And at any moment, you're going to be able to choose when you're ready to feel something else. But if you're going to choose to feel this, go in and feel this full on. Don't wishy-washy, don't half-ass it, just do it, feel it. Because the more you're willing to feel, the quicker you're going to heal. There is no denying it. It's like, oh, this really sucks. This really feels like crap. It doesn't feel good, but guess what? If you don't feel the crap, what makes you worthy of the good stuff? This is the duality. People don't understand where there is pain, there will be pleasure. Where there is pleasure, there is pain. That is the duality of life. But when they are neutral, when you're in a very neutral space, it appears neither one of them actually exists, because it's simply a contrast. It's simply showing you when you're out of balance. If you're feeling extreme pain or extreme pleasure and joy, those are both opposites. I always like to joke around about the pendulum. You're swinging on the pendulum of life. And if you can acknowledge that, you need to celebrate it all and see that they're both serving each other, and that as deep as you're willing to go in for the pleasure, you're going to feel that depth of pain on the other side, because nothing lasts and it's all transitory. That when you go through these experiences in life, you try to hold on, because isn't that what we want to do? We want to hold on to that beautiful experience. We're like, oh my God, I never want to feel the way I used to feel. This is the best. And yet it's fleeting, and we're holding and we're grasping. And what causes more pain is the resistance of letting go, when it's going to come back again, even stronger, because the more you're willing to go in deep one end, you're going to come out deeper on the other end. But when we're holding on to something, resistance is what creates more suffering, the attachment, the struggle. Like whether it's pushing away the pain or trying to hold on to the pleasure, they're equally the same force. And really, it's all beautiful. And it's just been very humbling. So I look in the mirror and I'm like, okay, here we are again. We've been here. And I just start laughing. Eventually it transitions into laughter, because I'm like, wow, when you can't not look at yourself and really be humbled and go, shit, I'm calling myself out on my own stuff. Like, dude, this life, it's meant to be the divine comedy for a reason. We've just turned it into too much seriousness, and we've lost our humility along the way. We think we need to aspire or be based on what we were conditioned to believe. But when it really boils down to it, the one thing that we are all here to do is to be true to our own souls, to devote to, maintaining the temple that our souls reside in, because it truly is a temple, to not sell ourselves short. I mean, a lot of us, we have a little bit of guilt around, oh man, I treated my temple like a roller coaster ride, like an amusement park when I was younger. Hey, who hasn't? And some people don't do it when they're young. They do it when they get older because they didn't get a chance when they were younger. But it's all serving, and there's no judgment necessary. It's all simply experience. It's the judgment we place upon it. And interestingly enough, I posted something the other day because I had to start all my social media over again because, anyway, no necessary explanation. But it was this post simply just talking about how everybody's so fearful of the judgment of God, yet we're the most judgmental of ourselves. And in that judgment of ourselves, we're setting ourselves up as a higher tribunal than him. This was a quote from C.S. Lewis. I think that if God forgives us, we must forgive ourselves. Otherwise, it's almost like setting up ourselves as a higher tribunal than him. That's pretty humbling. Whether you believe in God or a higher power, whatever it is for you, whatever you want to name it, it's unnameable, but it is a part of you. And we're not here to be the judge and jury. And that was an interesting thing growing up in religion that never made sense to me as a child, that always got me in trouble for asking questions in religious classes. Because I remembered in the Bible, it said, don't worship me in four walls. So here I was in class raising my hand saying, but God said, don't worship in four walls. So I don't understand the purpose of going to church. For me, church was in nature. For me, it was being out in the fields of flowers. It was climbing the trees. That was my connection to God. That was my connection to source. Even as a young girl going to Catholic schools up into fourth grade, and really admiring my grandmother for her devotion. She was such a strong, devoted woman to her faith. But at the same time, it didn't take me out of the same kind of devotion I had to this nature, this feeling, the sense that I believe we all have as children, but somewhere along the line, we are rubbed. It's like an eraser came across our brains or our beings, and we forgot that naivete of our childhood. Whether it was a trauma that happened or you just had to, suck it up and go live real life, because that's not real life. But it's something I think I've been blessed to say that I've never let that go. And I still remember that. So when I look at young children, I see myself in that. I see myself in the child that's mischievous, trying to get the parent's attention. And the parent is acting like the child's just being a troublemaker. When I look at that child, I see the child saying, my parent just isn't giving me attention, and I'm doing whatever I can to get them to coping mechanisms, survival skills. If we can be more conscious and aware. I'm not a parent, but when I see children too, I see them as the mini me of the parent. They're basically living out loud a lot of their traumas and unmet childhood needs. And I essentially just say all of us adults are typically running around like monkeys, flinging our shit at each other, kind of like saying, I need you to meet my needs. And they don't realize it's an unconscious acting out of their inner child, that as an adult, you're simply just trying to seek to have your unmet childhood needs through others, when in reality, you're the one responsible for that. That nobody else is responsible. They're going to mirror back where you're at. They're going to show you that you have some work to do in regards to standing up for yourself, not letting people walk over you, establishing healthy standards and boundaries. I have a kind of rub with the word boundary because I feel like that's a box around you. But I also understand where people need to be, like, hey, this is my hell no, this is my hell yes. You need to feel it in your body, to where if someone is taking advantage of you, you're allowing that. People don't do anything to you that you don't allow. And maybe in the beginning, let's say, for example, you start out in a relationship with somebody brand new. What happens? The honeymoon stage. Everybody goes full on out, shows their best face. They're giving it at their all. I say back off. I say you be you. Because if you give all your goodies in the beginning and then you back off 3 months down, because what is the honeymoon stage? It's about 3 months. 3 months down the road, everybody says, oh, but you changed because you gave it your all. And most people enter into a relationship without communication, without outlining, hey, what are we starting here? We don't start out with an agreement. People kind of go by the seat of their pants on a whim. A lot of people jump into sex immediately, not realizing that doesn't establish a relationship. And they don't really know if they even have anything in common to go forward. A lot of times relationships are established based on there was chemistry. Ooh, I say back off on that one too, because when I hear the word chemistry, I'm like, repeating a pattern or a story, or a lesson's coming up for surface again. Have you learned the lesson? If you're not aware of your patterns in relationship, whether you're attracting a codependency, a narcissist, you're doing everything, is it a healthy chemistry that you're feeling? Because the chemistry 9 times out of 10 is simply the familiar of something, comfort zone. You're like, oh, this person feels like home. Was home comfortable for you when you were growing up? Is it really what you want to re-experience? Did you come from a home that was loving, or did you come from an alcoholic family? This is why addiction is so prevalent in our country, is because people fall into the trap of what is familiar rather than breaking that pattern, breaking those cycles. So I also work with addiction programs using Kundalini yoga, and it's called Beyond Addiction. And it's been very eye-opening, because all of us, our biggest addiction is our belief systems. And people will defend their beliefs to the death. That's why wars happen, not getting your way. Look at the world today. We got a bunch of bullies. They want to exert their power. I would even go so far as to say, because most of it's been the patriarch, wagging their dicks around, basically marking territory and trying to establish, this is mine. And if you don't go with it, then I'm going to beat you up. It's really disgusting when you look at the world, and that everybody gets to suffer because people don't get their way, and they're trying to control, exert, and steal from others. At what point are we humans going to recognize that's not being a good human, and that it's not something we need to pledge an allegiance to or against? What it really means is we need to come back together and acknowledge that the common goal of life is seeking community, connection, support, love, to make people feel valued, significant, that you have something to contribute and I also have something to contribute. Why don't we put that together? If we looked more at what we have in common than stupid little, piddly things that we don't, which are insignificant 9 times out of 10, we'd find the world a better place. We'd find the world a better place if we were working on our patterns, our, cleaning up our shit, clearing out our houses in the sense of all the baggage that we've been carrying for generations. Because, the stories we carry forward are simply regurgitating, and it's generational curses. It's our parents' stories, their parents' stories. And until we stop it with ourselves, we will pass that on to the next generations. So mirrors, people, we're all mirrors.
Right. That's great how you worked right back around to the mirror there. Nice. And yeah, if people would do their shadow work before they get in relationships, and especially before they have children, that's
Mm-hmm.
just tragic, because that's why we all need it, because our parents didn't do it, and that would change the world if everybody would just do their shadow work and not wait till they're old and have some major crisis in life to prompt that, and just do it. It's not even difficult to do, but it does take some courage, and you have to get behind it. You have to do it. You just have to do it, like the Nike logo. And then
Yeah.
another thing you brought up that I haven't really thought about was, because I used to be just always try to escape reality with drugs mostly, and alcohol. And I always
Mm-hmm.
thought first I was trying to escape reality, and then I was like, no, I was trying to escape myself. But what I was trying to escape was the pain, and
Mm-hmm.
you can't end pain. You can't end it. You can look back on things and be like, oh yeah, well that was painful, but doesn't really mean anything now. So, and that's what shadow work ultimately gets for you. it brings you to that end of pain. So it is so worth it, because otherwise you're just going to go around trying to escape your pain in one way or another. And it's until you deal with it, work through it, and have a process to make it to where it's just a story. You don't even have any emotion when you talk about, certain things that used to really bother you. You're there when you get to that point.
What a beautiful awareness. And it's true. So there's one thing we say in Beyond Addiction is when you numb the pain, you numb the joy. And that's what addiction basically is always chasing the pleasure but that's because the pain is being numbed. And so it's that chasing the first high, right? But the mental construct, like we've already escaped the pain's in the past. And for people to try to basically run from the pain of the past, it's only the story in your head. It's only, a construct, a mental construct. And the reality is imagining, you've already done the work. You're very much in line and in tune with the fact that, wow, that pain doesn't define me. That experience was not who I am. It was just that. It was an experience. But yet so many people still identify with the past that is no longer. And so they keep it alive by the resistance, the struggle of trying to let it go. So it's that push pull again. It's that I can't let it go because it gives me significance too, right? So you've got the human needs, right? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. All you need is to satisfy 3 of those to constitute an addiction. It gives me significance. It connects me to other people with pain, because what do people do? They commiserate and they look for people who have the same stories to oh yeah, that happened to me too. We do this all the time. This is how a lot of humans connect, is through their misery, more so than their pleasures, right? And to the point where they don't realize they're enabling one another in their pain. They're enabling each other to not heal that and give it more significance than their present, the gift of the now. It gets juicy when you get to a certain point. It really gets juicy to the point where you realize, wow, boy, I was milking that shit. And now I'm like, let that go. Get that icky off. Because there's so much beauty in the world. And you'll find whatever you seek, whatever you look for.
Absolutely. And it's all your perspective too. You can see this existence as, prison planet and worry about what you're supposed to do when you die, or you can just go, wow, look at what I can do here. I can co-create my reality. I can, have a really good life. I can help other people. I can manifest whatever I want whenever I need it. I can learn how to astral project. If I put the discipline behind it, there's all kinds of things I can do that I don't even know I can do.
Mm-hmm. Astral projection makes me laugh because when I was a little girl, I didn't even know that's what I was doing. And I'll never forget being on a road trip, because my mom would do crazy road trips. Oh my gosh. I'm sitting on the floor we had a Ford, it was a station wagon. And I'm sitting with my body on the floor, but my head on the front seat. And my mom's driving. There was a point where I felt myself falling. And because of the fall and that suspension in air, it shook me out of that dream. Now, at that time, I did not know that's what astral projecting was in that particular case. But I'm like, well, how do people even, how, all these different things we call, to me, I was listening to your video the other day with James, right? And I love that we talk about the dream life, because for me, I've always been a dreamer. And to me, the dreaming is, like you were saying, and it's the truth. It's just another parallel reality. And it really is important to be very lucid and aware of your dreams, because you can change them if they are freaky, they're scary, some weird stuff's going on in them. You all just need to remind yourself this is a dream. Just like you're choosing to have that dream and that experience, you can choose to shift it and change it. But it takes a lot of conscious effort. And like you said, you go to bed at night and you set that intention beforehand, setting intentions, having a journal next to your bed, writing everything down. Like I've always done that. Is always write down my dreams. I had some really crazy dreams last night too, where I was astral projecting to visit some woman, which to me, I was thinking it was you at a younger age, and it was like a secret garden and another land. So, we can always see the dream life as an escape from our current reality, or maybe our current reality is really the dream life escaping from our dreams. It's just, to me, it's really cool stuff. And my mind will go all over the place. So I enjoy those kinds of conversations.
Right. And just like you can change your dreams by putting the intent and the work behind it, you can change this life the same way, because
Mm-hmm.
life is a dream, right? Row, row, row your boat.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a beautiful quote that says, "You're not a tree. You don't have to stay where you're not planted where you are. You don't have to stay where you're at." And a lot of times people use everything as an excuse to really shift and move out of the comfort of the discomfort. It's easier sometimes to stay because it's familiar, because it's predictable. And again, that's an addiction, is staying in an unhealthy, toxic situation. Unless you're fortunate enough to go through an experience or two, like I have in my life, where the change is forced upon you because you're not making it. And I really, truly believe that the more you hold on to something, the harder you're going to crash. The more you think that I need to stay in this situation for whatever XYZ explanation, excuse you're using, that it will be chosen for you if you don't come down to it, because your soul came here for a purpose. It can be by your choosing the easy way, or by your resistance, which will feel like the hard way. And it'll feel like like you'll be the victim because you didn't make the choice. It was chosen for you, versus you being the victor and choosing to make the change. And interestingly enough, I listen to different astrologers. Like, to me, astrology is the weather forecast for the energies that are in the world. And I especially listen to astrologers because, to me, what I pick up on the collective pulse in the world of, humanity, what I feel when I first in the morning meditate, start my day, whatever it is I do, what drops in for me gets confirmed through a lot of astrology that I listen to. And something I've been hearing around different circles is that the astrology that's happening right now, in addition to the Pluto transits that are matching up with, the revolutionary times, right? It's also matching up to 2008, which is exactly when I went through that major life change and losing my job in a very unjust way. It did suck, but I know that it was for my best interest. We can look at things and see the injustice, but you can also see that sometimes injustice is what brings you in your life the justice. I love languaging. I love how everybody plays with the words. And I grew up with a mother that wrote down on a yellow sticky piece of paper, when Post-its were still new, she put down, "Don't look where you don't want to go." Then she crossed out, "Don't look where you want to go." Most people are so fixated on what they don't want, they don't recognize that that attracts that. Like attracts like. If you are fixated on the don't want, you are attracting that, because energy, the universe does not hear the don't, it feels the energy. If it's really locked up in your body, this is why it's so important. Embodiment practices, somatic release, healing modalities, Kundalini yoga. We use the body as a tool to shake the shit out, to really recalibrate the nervous system. Most people's nervous systems are totally fried. That's why they freak out and act out. So they react to their circumstances rather than be able to breathe, which is the most important thing you could ever do, is to step back, take a deep breath, and evaluate the circumstances, not react to them. Respond, right? So when we're in these different situations and the world is happening to us, we're resisting it, but the universe is only hearing what you are focusing so much intently in. Like, you go to a restaurant, how many people can honestly order off the menu what they know they want? Did you go in there knowing what you want? Just like in this life, we came in with a sole purpose. Our soul knows what it wants. But this mind of ours, this ego, is like going, but, based on experiences that you've had, that it's still kind of clinging to, right? They're lingering in the basement. And so when we go to the restaurant, we have a menu in front of us. Most people use process of elimination because they don't know what they want. And that triggers a lot of people because when they know somebody around them knows what they want, they feel threatened because that's a confidence that they don't think they have. But in reality, that person's still mirroring back to them their potential. The mirrors that we see, whether it's good or bad, are still ours. So when we see someone and we admire something about them, that is us too. Recognize the other as you. That is me too. I am that. See something bad we don't like, that's just as equally ours too. If we can own that, it's not going to own us. Again, this is shadow work. Own your shit so it doesn't own you. Because when you own your shit, you know thyself so well. That stuff is not going to unconsciously drive your behaviors, your what you do in life. Unconsciously, most people who don't pick up on their shit, don't own it, they've got their shit running the show under the surface, just like a computer. What program are you running? It's time to upgrade. Upgrade to a concentrated, devoted path of knowing rather than going by the seat of your pants and just going with whatever comes to you. Like that's an issue in the spiritual community. Oh, it's all going to work out. Do you really know that? Do you really know what it is you want to work out? Do you have some sort of a formulation as to the direction your path is going? Or are you just kind of airy-fairy Pollyanna up in the clouds, literally needing to be tethered down to the earth? Because a lot of times I see people and I'm like, dude, you need to get in your body and down back here on this earth. We did not come here to escape our bodies. Again, it's embodiment. It's always going to come back to being in your body. The more we try to escape our bodies, we're escaping this world. But yet, again, it's like avoiding the pain. You're not going to feel the pleasure. And it all ties back together. It always comes back to where attention goes, energy flows. And if you're consciously aware of where your attention is going, on the negative and the positive, what you want and what you don't want, because the don't, look where you want to go. Keep it simple and release and eliminate those demoting languaging words, spelling words, languaging. We are casting the spell of our own life every moment we speak and act from those places of patterns. And if we don't become consciously aware of those patterns, that without the awareness, we cannot open the door. Awareness is key. Once you have awareness of the patterns, the spell casting that you have set, just as much as you've been indoctrinated and programmed, because clearly we have to unlearn a lot of the stuff that we've been infiltrated with. You can say good and bad, whatever, it doesn't really matter because it's just a program. And I really believe when we came to this human existence, that it's a game. I've really been listening to some people talk about things that I've been quietly holding within myself around. This life has always been a game. And just like the rat in the maze, you were wiped clear of your previous experiences, and you're here to remember. And even that word, again, member, to connect. Us all being individual aspects of consciousness of God. When we come together, that's why we're more powerful in unity. Why humans in unity and community, when we come together, we're so powerful together, is because we are members of the same consciousness of the same God source. The more of us that come together, the more powerful we are. They don't want you to know that. So that 6 foot, social distance thing is really just breaking our heart coherence and our connection to remember our source. We are each other. We are part of the bigger picture. So when we do come together in unity like that, especially for a good common goal of overcoming the levels of consciousness, which was happening 3 years ago, it really changes the world. But we have to be willing to see the patterns and know that we are not those patterns. It's just like, oh, I didn't realize that's not even my story. It's like when I looked at my parents in 2008, when I saw my dad and his wife, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in a relationship. At that time, I was dating an Italian man, and my relationship with him looked very much like my parents. And it was seeing it in plain sight in front of my face that I went, this stops here now because this is icky. That's not my story. Sometimes you have to be faced with it in front of you, and other times you have to really go within and extrapolate it so that you can, release, confront it for the truth that it is or it is not. Is it your truth? There's, we know there's the universal truth, there's our individual truths, there's so many different versions of truth. But again, it goes back to, is that part of your soul path? It's all going to serve. And I just laugh, because at the same time we want to say this is good and that's bad, it really isn't. And there's a great thing that I know I'm jumping around, but Osho is one of my favorite teachers, that in his book of secrets, one time I opened up the book, and I like to do what we call a hook 'em, which is like you just randomly open up a page and see what's the message in that page in the book. And the one time that I pulled it open, this was very humbling, and it's really deep for people who don't dive this deep. When you choose something, you are essentially also denying something else. So many people want to be self-righteous and think of everybody else but themselves. We're all in this together. I'm supposed to, religion has taught us to always be the martyr and to think of others first and not ourselves. But if you don't put your oxygen mask on first, you're no good for anybody. So you need to think of yourself first, because that is thinking of others. That's a huge healing wound that the collective has to overcome as well. Because what is the percentage? There's a high percentage of the planet is Christian, comes from a religious background. And even at the root of Judaism is Christianity. It's all the same story, just branched off into other sectors. But going back to, when you choose one thing, you're denying something else, you're rejecting something. And nobody wants to admit that, because that's like saying, I denied you, but and then you'll get well, I had to choose to cross the street or not to cross the street, or I would have been hit by a car, or somebody could have gotten killed, blah, blah, blah. But just the humbleness in recognizing that the masters would say, choosing this or that is the trap. When you walk the middle path, when you're neutral, you're not really attaching to a true choosing. You're just simply guided intuitively. The gnosis, the GNOSIS, the true knowing is an intuitive knowing. It's not I know, intellectually, but then most people aren't integrated with an experience of it. It's just an informational type knowing. The true gnosis is the wisdom within, is that intangible but feeling. Again, this is why it's so important to really feel into your bodies. If you're not tapped into your body and the wisdom of your body, the five senses, or how you take in data, then you're losing out on the heightened intuition that is your knowing, your gnosis, your true wisdom of being. That's your soul truth. And that's where it comes back to. And that's really what my biggest passion is body awareness, is embodiment, is, somatic. There's so many different ways to say it. But the truth is, it lies in the cells of your being. Every experience you've had is in your body. And, the mind basically translates into the body. So when we're misaligned in the mind, it translates in the body as a dis-ease, a discomfort, because the body, as they use kinesiology, is always telling on the mind. It's a tattletale. So when people think, oh, I've got this ache or this pain, they never stop to question what in my mind is lying that my body is telling the truth on, that it's resisting the lie of the mind. So you have a pain, you can look at the different books. Hay House has the book, Louise Hay, Heal Your Body book, which will tell you about, general areas of your body and what those emotional connections are related to with affirmations. There's also some really good thick books that have been around for years. And I don't remember the name of another one, but they go into depth as to, let's say, for example, I had an appendectomy 3 years ago because I was in a very toxic narcissistic relationship. And I'll tell you right now, I understand why it's so difficult for people to get out of them, because these people are so calculated that the only way you will get out of that relationship, no matter how strong you are, and I'm a pretty strong person and I don't put up with shit, I literally had to call in a second party. I had to bring someone else in as a witness, because that person was going to exhaust me with hours of arguing, which I already knew was fruitless. But I ended up in the hospital because I had my appendix burst, and I already struggle with IBS, which is another form of You know, it's a self-harming, I believe. A lot of our chronic illnesses and pains are inflicted self-abuse. It's a flagellation. Think about it. Because I was not making the change in that relationship. I had such deep disgust, not just with him, but with myself, that I was in that relationship. And it took me a while to find the physical component that went with that explanation, because I had to search on the internet, and you know, it's also very challenging to find information these days. And that was 3 years ago. But when I came across it, I was like, that makes so much sense. That my appendix burst because I needed to end that relationship. And until we really recognize that the body is always giving us all the answers we need, and really trusting that wisdom, like, okay, so I have a pain, you know, what is the pain really telling me about my mind? Because it's a misalignment. The dis-ease in my body is the dis-ease in the mind. And all the body's doing is saying, hey, I'm screaming over here because you're not listening. You can't figure it out with the same logic of thinking that created the belief, right? Even confronting the idea that you have an issue in your mind, a lot of times you got to move the body. You know, if you're angry, what's the best thing to do? Go move your body, go dance, take a walk. That's embodiment. That's truly like recognizing that to work through the mind, you got to go through the body. And that's why in like Kundalini yoga, we do a lot of arm exercises, because the mind is really what we're shouldering, right? And our armpits are the garbage pit of the mind. So when we're shaking the arms, the mind starts freaking out. But the reality is, what we're trying to do is shake out the shit. You know, like, notice your mind. Oh my gosh, my mind's freaking out because my arms are up. And then afterwards, you're like, that wasn't so bad. It was just my mind creating a story. So in a way, you know, a lot of what we do in Kundalini yoga, and I do a lot of rebirthings, which are really powerful, is really to clear out that garbage, is to really, that is the shadow work. That is the getting to the root cause of your pain and your suffering. Your body's not the root cause. It's the mind. It always is. It always goes back to the mind. And that's been through my personal experience. That's been with all the tools that I've amassed, and, you know, the teachings. My life has been my, you know, like we say, make your mess your message. Let your test be your testimony. And that's all I got is who I am and what I've experienced. And most people don't realize that you're more credible when you come from a personal experience than you are from an intellectual. But yet we have a society and a culture, you know, it's a cult, people running around in a cult, where people put more significance on people with degrees. Although I think this is changing significantly right now. They put more, you know, you're important because you've got a doctorate after your name, or you've got a bunch of degrees and certificates, when in reality, that's just knowledge. And in my case, I feel like I have studied and researched so much that I could have gone to school for half this stuff and still not have gotten the amount of, you know, true grit, personal experience that I have gotten through my life. So, you know, just always remember, when you look at people, don't look at what are their credentials, but look at how you feel in your body around them. How do they make you feel? Because sometimes, you know, what you're finding is that you've put so much significance in a person with credentials, they make you feel like shit. They make you feel emasculated, or, you know, like in men, they make you feel smaller than you are. And you don't want that. That's not how a person should make you feel. They should make you feel like they're going to lift you up higher than you already are. Because that's what we're all seeking, is upliftment, is support, is love. That's all love. So I think I talked enough for that part.
Yeah, great stuff again. So much there. And yeah, there's always communication going on between our body and our mind if we pay attention. And self-awareness is so key, of course. And it kind of all starts there, and being honest, you know, self-honesty. But yeah, these dogs are kind of wanting to go on a walk. But I
I
think
was
yeah, Lana's actually met the dogs, so
mm,
I think Cosmo is her favorite.
Cosmo definitely like schmoozed up to me for sure. They're all beautiful. They're all so lovable. And Biggie, I'm glad to see that Biggie's doing better. Um,
Yeah.
they have a tendency to also point out our stuff too, don't they?
Yeah, they're great.
Well, I have really appreciated you just connecting. I'm grateful we're connected from the trip. I'm certain, 100% certain we will see each other again in the near future. And you're just a
Yeah, I
beautiful
think we should be part of the same intentional community, because you're
Mhm,
definitely someone that would be awesome in that kind of environment. And my friend Lisa and I are already kind of looking into stuff, and we're kind of looking for people that are working on emotional healing, on shadow work, and just who are awake. So that's kind of the criteria for this community. So and then with all of your skills, you'd be great. And, we can all learn things and teach each other things and look out for each other and get away from this system. I know it's a real hippie idea from, it seems like back in the 60s and 70s, but that's what's going on now. All the hippies they have their life experience now, and we're all like, okay, well, let's do it again. Let's do it right this time. So I think it's time to start doing those kind of communities. And, we don't really need much out of the system. People just buy too much crap anyway. All you need is what? Food and water and an energy source. And we're here in Portugal, as you know, and I know you were thinking about getting land here anyway. So let's
mhm.
do an intentional community.
Yeah, because in the end, people are going to wake up to the fact that they're the ones doing the jobs for people that are trying to control. And it's like, you're already doing the jobs. You can take that and transition it to help others. There'll be a day when people wake up in these offices and go, huh, if I actually didn't do this, it's not about the money, it's about the overall contribution. We got bigger
Exactly.
fish.
Yeah, you just need a comfortable place to live and food you like to eat. And I mean, what else do you need? And
Yeah. Mm,
just people, yeah. And you could get enough property where everybody has like an acre of land to themselves, even so it wouldn't be like, too hippie community. But I'm really all for that. So I'm putting that intention out there. So all you magic people,
mm-hmm.
uh, that intention out there too, and let's do this, because I just think that's how you're going to get a group of healed people. The whole world's not going to do shadow work, you know? It's just not going to
Exactly.
happen. But it'd be nice to get a group, and then you would have all these children growing up with the proper attention, told that they're magical, and, not what we do now with kids, to get us where all we've gotten to where we need to do shadow work and emotional healing work. So yeah, it'd be great to just do something like that, and then even help, make it a whole community where you could help people on the outside too. Like Lisa was saying, she'd like to help kids when they get out of foster care, because they kind of just get dumped on the streets when they get out of foster care, especially the girls. They get in real predicaments. So there's all kinds of good things you can do,
Yeah.
and yeah, and the way the system's working more and more, it's like I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen, but it sure is fun to watch.
It is actually. It's almost like you're like, okay, what are they going to serve up next? Because I mean, a lot of us who are very much aware and worked in those kinds of environments too, it's like what people don't understand is toxicity starts at leadership. It doesn't go from bottom up, it goes from top down. And a lot of places, people are unhappy. And I don't know, we've talked about this everywhere I went on my travels. The conversation is around people not wanting to work. But it's not that they don't want to work. I think it's that they've recognized the priorities in their lives, that they were unhappy in the positions they were working in and under, and that people are really trying to reevaluate and come back to what matters most. And when it comes down to it, a lot of people haven't had their time with their families. So
Right, and,
yeah.
like the Ubuntu communities, they have it worked out. I don't remember how many people total it was, but they had it worked out where you only had to do like 3 hours of work a week if everybody just cooperated and did what they're supposed to do. But of course, most people would do more than that and be learning other things. But I mean, they just had all the algorithms worked out and stuff. And that was like being totally self-sustained with their own power plant, their own everything, their own
Mm,
communication
yeah,
systems.
model that's
So
working and just expand upon it for sure.
yeah, it's
Mm.
that time again.
Thank you so
Time.
much. I truly
Yeah.
appreciate and love you and sending lots of little schmoochies to the poochies. And I will be
Yeah.
in touch.
All right. And everybody out there, be sure and subscribe to Lana's channel. I'll link it in the description and in the comments. And remember to focus on what you want and always help others if you can. And we'll talk to you next time. Ciao, ciao.
Yeah.
Bye, Lana.
Bye.